All right, guys, let's take a look at the Tudor titanium Pelagos. Now, this is the current version, we'll say. This is the in-house movement with the MT5600 versus the first release one they did with the ETA model in it. And we're going to talk about that probably in a little more detail because I think that's one of the most interesting topics on this watch is the thickness. The elephant in the room, right, is the thickness. But we're going to talk more about that. Let's just get into the watch and we'll see how it progresses. So first off, big thanks to Craig. You guys, I've videoed many of Craig's watches. I've met up with Craig. He's a fellow Michigander, and I'm sure we're going to meet up again soon. So we are looking at a 42 millimeter watch. However, it's not exactly 42. So I measure 42.4 at the bezel, and then the best I could do crosswise at the case from the bottom, I get like 41 and a half. It's not really 42. So, I mean, it definitely wears and presents like a 42 millimeter watch. So let's just call it a 42, I guess, even though my measurements are all over the place. And then the lug to lug is about a 49.75-ish millimeter, so not quite 50. And the thickness, like we are going to talk a lot more about soon, is 14.3 millimeter. Lug width, 22. Bracelet, awesome bracelet on this thing. Tapers down to 18 millimeter. You have a fully milled out titanium, well, it says right there, titanium and stainless steel. I don't know what parts are titanium and I don't know what parts are stainless steel, but it's a combination of the two in the clasp. You have the ceramic detent balls there for the retention, and a very clean, well-done bracelet. A lot of people brag about this bracelet clasp, meaning that it is something that a lot of people like for the most part. They like that spring-loaded and the quick adjust. Here's where I land. So without getting into how it all works, because I'm sure that's been covered many times in video, I really like the clasp for the most part. I like the quick adjust. I don't need... Here's what I would change. I don't need an indicator. I don't need a diver extension. And I sure as heck don't need the fancy little springs in there. I don't want it, don't need it. I would rather have more on-the-fly micro adjust, much like you would see from like Rolex or Omega or anybody else. That's all I want in this bracelet, because this watch also comes with a rubber strap and a rubber strap extension for your diving wetsuit. So I don't need all that on this bracelet. Anybody that's really going to take this 500 meter depth rated watch diving is going to use it on the rubber strap. They're not going to use it on the bracelet. So let's just get that taken care of. We don't need that in the future clasp. I know they're showing off and they're making like a super professional grade watch here, but let's be realistic. They're going to use the rubber strap. They're not even going to use this clasp. Okay, let's get back to the watch. 60 click bezel, one of the best bezel actions in the business, guys. I don't know how they do their detents. I've been told they're like ceramic ball bearings in there. So, and it's just clean and crisp, very smooth, no play, and almost lines up. This one's a little off. I mean, super, super small amount, and it's hard depending on the angle. I feel like the arrow for the pip is maybe just a touch to the right. I mean, very small amount. Not like Seiko bad. Just Tudor bad, I guess. Let's see. Grade 2 titanium, so we're good there. It's going to show some scratches, which, let's look at the scratches. Craig has worn it plenty, so as you should with your watches, and it shows a little bit of wear. It's not like horrific or anything. It's just titanium shows marks. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. This one's overall really clean. You have really nice screwed links. They're all individual, and you can see they're gapped. So you're going to get some nice airflow there, or clean out, or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be very comfortable and lightweight. And lightweight. 144 grams sized for my 7¼ inch wrist. You have a 7 millimeter signed screw down crown. You can see the machining on the, I guess, coin edge is very clean and sharp on the bezel, and it's a little bit different on the crown. The paragraph text. Does it bother you? It doesn't bother me, guys. I thought it would. I looked many times at pictures of the previous model and this one. I have grown, certainly after having this and wearing this newer model that Craig loaned me, I now like this one more than the original one for many reasons. And I'm fine with all the text. I think we could have maybe ditched one line, but I don't have a problem with it. Let's just say it that way. And then I do like the bold white framed hand set, snowflakes, obviously, those are awesome, and the squared and rectangles and triangled indices that are also kind of surrounded by the cutout chapter ring. So it is super, super legible, white framed, and beautiful, beautiful stark white lume here. And then when we do the lume shot at the end, you're going to see it's a really nice blue. So I think in the comparison I did with the black one and the blue one, I asked for questions. I picked out 2 questions. George in the comments asked the Lume, this one versus the Seiko. So I will show it next to the Monster so we can answer George's question about how good the Lume is. And then DJZ Rob, who comments on a lot of my videos, like Rob Zombie, I think is like the other little part of his username. He asked about the weight. Well, I didn't get the weight of it with the entire bracelet, but sized for my 7 1/4 wrist, it is 144 grams. And just to put that into a little bit of context, the Seamaster size for my wrist is 179 grams. So although it's titanium, it's not like it's crazy light. Now I feel like the Seamaster is a little heavier than it needs to be for a stainless steel watch, but I also feel like the Tudor titanium is a little bit heavier than it should be for what it is too. But it's just because there's a lot going on there. It's titanium, but there's a lot of it there. So here's a look at the case back if you're interested in that. Obviously, you know what, we're like 5 minutes in. Let's talk about the movement. I want to talk about that. And again, if you guys have any more questions, I'll have this watch for a little bit. We can probably talk more in depth on a couple of things if you're interested. But the main things I want to talk about is the movement and why you should probably care less that this watch is technically thicker. Yes, it is actually thicker than the previous model. But this model is 14.3 millimeter thick. The original one was 13.8, which 13.8 is, actually this is like almost 13.8. So it's basically the same as this, right? So, and I know a lot of people will compare the Seamaster to this. So the previous generation Tudor Pelagos was 13.8 and this one's 14.3. So it was very similar to the Seamaster in thickness. Now being titanium, it's a little bit lighter, so that's going to mitigate some of that. But what we need to talk about is the MT5600 movement. It is COSC, it's anti-magnetic, it's in-house, and it is a heck of a performer. I put it on the time grapher, and it is running at like +2 dial up. It's running perfect. Good amplitude, no beat error, it's like perfect. The MT5600 movement is 6.5 millimeter thick. That's pretty thick for a 3-handed and a date movement, because like the ETA 2824, which was in the previous model, is about 4.6 millimeter thick. So 6.5, 4.6, remember those numbers. That's 1.9 millimeter difference. This movement is almost 2 millimeter thicker than what was in the previous model. Now, back up. I said this was 14.3 thick, and the previous one was 13.8. That's only a 0.5 millimeter thicker. So they used a movement that was almost 2 millimeter thicker and only made the watch a 0.5 millimeter thicker than it was. So actually, I'm going to give some props to Tudor, because I don't know how they did that, but I'm glad they didn't make this thing as thick as, say, like the difference between the Black Bay 41 Smile dial that had the ETA in it and then to the in-house movement, because that change was like 2 millimeter thicker. This is only a 0.5 millimeter thick. There's a big difference going from I forget what the measurements are on the Black Bay 41, but adding 2mm is basically a deal breaker for me for that watch. This one, if I had this one next to the original one, I'd venture to say I would actually pick this one. I don't know, maybe. I think I would. Let's pop it on wrist. There it is on my 7 1/4, and I did wear this for many days, and I wore it at work and everything. And it is crazy comfortable. It's balanced out perfectly. There's no like top heavy or anything like that. It just wears perfect. I did throw it on the rubber strap. I'm not going to show it on video. It's in another video, but I 100% don't like it on the rubber strap. I don't. So if you do like it on the rubber strap, then good for you. But I can't stand it because the rubber strap goes straight down and it doesn't contour to my wrist good. This watch needs to be on this bracelet. It is perfect. So the only reason Craig let me take this one is because he's hoping that I'll buy it from him. He ended up buying the blue one. And I know I get the draw to the blue one. The blue one is beautiful, but I really like the stark contrast of the black and the white. I think this would be the colorway I would pick. I'm just not in a situation right now to pick this one up. So unfortunately, I'm not going to add this one to my collection right now. In the future, who knows? Maybe I will. So let's check the Lume, because I could keep going on and on about this watch, guys. This is the perfect watch for the price point and what you get. I mean, look at the Lume. It's fully loomed out bezel, ceramic, matte, all that stuff. And I'm not sure what Lume formula they're using, but it is beautiful and it is bright. So to answer George's question, how does it compare to Seiko? I would say better, because there's no way this is like a regular BGW9. I've handled enough watches to know that BGW9 Lume, even when applied heavily and well done, doesn't stand up to Seiko Lume or like a high-grade C3. It's usually not as bright. This one it's at least as bright, because blue sometimes is going to penetrate the eye, the visual of seeing it better than the green. So it's easily as bright, if not brighter, and it's super long lasting. So I don't see any downsides to this watch. It might be the perfect tool diver. I think it's the perfect tool diver. Thanks for watching, guys.